Amid an era of smoke and steel, there was one sound America's enemies would never forget: the deep, thunderous roar of the Packard Marine V12. It wasn't found in bombers or tanks. It hid beneath the decks of small patrol boats, fast enough to slice through waves, outsmart radar, and change the tide of war. Few realize that Packard, the brand once known for chauffeuring America's elite, was the creator of this masterpiece. They transformed refined automotive engineering into raw naval power. And when the guns fell silent, so did its name. The roar vanished. No one spoke of it again. Today, we uncover that lost secret, the story of the 12-cylinder heart that helped America win the war, only to be buried by time itself. Before World War II, Packard was the pride of America's elite, a brand for those who valued silence, grace, and perfection over speed. Every Packard car was a symbol of dignity, a statement that true luxury didn't need to shout. Then, in 1939, came a request that would change everything. The US Navy needed a new power plant for its lightweight patrol boats, engines that could push them across the ocean at terrifying speeds, yet survive the chaos of war. No automaker dared to take the risk. Too demanding, too dangerous. But Packard said yes. They understood that precision and craftsmanship were the only way to make the impossible possible. A secret team of engineers was assembled. Behind closed doors, they tore apart their luxury V12 design and rebuilt it for war. The result was the Packard 4 M2500 masterpiece that defied logic. At its core lay 12 cylinders arranged in a 60-degree V configuration, with a total displacement of 2,490 cubic inches, or 41 liters. The compression ratio averaged around 6.4 to 1, perfectly balanced for endurance and performance. Each cylinder featured dual overhead camshafts, operating 2 valves per cylinder, an extremely rare design for naval engines of the era. The block was cast from heat-resistant aluminum alloy, trimming nearly 1,000 pounds compared to conventional steel construction. Inside, a one-piece forged steel crankshaft was balanced to within thousandths of an inch, while chromoly connecting rods could withstand rotational speeds above 2,400 revolutions per minute without distortion. Its most distinctive feature was the Lysholm twin-screw supercharger, a mechanically driven system that maintained constant boost pressure and eliminated throttle lag. Thanks to this, the Packard 4 M2500 produced between 1,200 and 1,500 horsepower, depending on configuration, with peak torque exceeding 2,500 pound-feet. The circulating seawater cooling system pumped cold water through aluminum jackets inside the block, a simple yet brilliantly efficient idea. The dual ignition system ensured continuous operation even if half the spark plugs failed. Beyond its power, Packard engineered the 4M-2500 for onboard serviceability. Cylinder banks, heads and pistons could be removed and replaced at sea using standard tools. With its modular design, crews could perform full maintenance without docking. And in 1940, the British government urgently needed thousands of Rolls-Royce Merlin engines to power the Spitfire and Hurricane fighters, but factory capacity in England could not meet demand. So America was chosen to help. That was when the Packard Motor Car Company stepped into history once again. When British engineers brought the Merlin blueprints to Detroit, they assumed the Americans would simply assemble by instructions. But Packard refused. They wanted to improve, not imitate. In less than a year, Packard completely redesigned the entire production line, converting from British imperial standards to inch thousandths, while adding optical tolerance inspection systems, something even Rolls-Royce itself had never done at the time. The result was the Packard Marine V12, assembled in Detroit with such precision that British engineers admitted, "We created the Merlin, but the Americans perfected it." These engines were then installed in the P-51 Mustang, the legendary fighter that reclaimed the skies of Europe. Beneath the sea, the PT boats roared with three Packard Marine V12-4M2500 engines mounted side by side in their engine rooms, producing a combined 4,500 horsepower, enough to propel the 80-foot craft across the water at speeds exceeding 45 to 50 knots, nearly twice as fast as Japanese warships of the time. More than powerful, the Packard engines responded instantly, allowing captains to change direction in a split second, something nearly impossible for larger ships. What was truly remarkable was their endurance. Naval reports revealed that even if one or two engines were damaged by enemy fire, the remaining one could still bring the crew safely home. Packard engineers called the 4M-2500 the engine with three lives. It could start in seconds, reach full power in under a minute, and run for hours at 100% load. In real combat, boats like PT-109, commanded by John F. Kennedy, or PT-305 and PT-617, proved that incredible strength. With three roaring V12 engines, they dashed into danger, launched their torpedoes, and slipped away like storms racing across the sea. Behind the triumphant roar of the Packard Marine V12 lies a lesser-known truth: the enormous cost and absolute secrecy that surrounded its production. Each 4M-2500 engine required thousands of hours of precision handcrafting using rare materials and cutting-edge measurement tools. One Packard engineer once remarked, "We didn't build engines, we crafted them like fine jewelry." But that jewel came at a price, nearly 10 times more expensive than a civilian marine engine. To maintain secrecy, every process, drawing, and even serial number was encrypted and stored separately in military archives. Engineers worked under intense confidentiality. No papers were allowed outside the plant. Every component carried a coded designation, and workers knew only their specific tasks. No one, except the chief engineers, ever saw the complete engine. Even within Packard's Detroit factory, many employees had no idea they were building one of the most important machines of World War II. After the war ended, the last 4M-2500 engines were crated, sealed in military storage, or sold off to private boat enthusiasts. A few PT boats were kept as training vessels, while the rest were dismantled for parts and materials. Within just a few years, an entire golden chapter of Detroit's industrial greatness had disappeared. Ironically, Packard helped America win the war, but that very victory left it without a place in peacetime. As the auto industry entered a new era of mass production and low-cost efficiency, Packard's philosophy of handcrafted precision became outdated and expensive. By the early 1950s, Packard had lost its standing and soon vanished from America's industrial map. The remaining Packard Marine engines gathered dust in naval warehouses or were melted down for scrap. Many believed the roar of the Packard Marine V12 had vanished with the PT boats. Yet in a few corners of America, that sound still lives. At the PT Boat Museum in Fall River, Massachusetts, volunteers spent years finding parts and restoring every bolt just to awaken a Packard 4M2500 after 7 decades of silence. When it finally roared, The deep thunder silenced the crowd. They weren't just hearing a machine, they were hearing an era return to life. Boats like PT-305 in New Orleans and PT-658 in Oregon were also revived with their original engines. Restoration teams described it as waking a sleeping monster. Even after 80 years, the sound remains powerful, smooth, and alive, as if Packard never left the sea. But Packard's legacy is more than surviving metal. It's the spirit of a lost philosophy, built for passion, not profit. Every element of the 4M-2500 was made to endure. Nothing was good enough. That mindset of over-engineering, of exceeding every standard, is what set Packard apart. After the war, Packard engineers carried that knowledge into other companies, shaping the next generation of American high-performance engines. Their fingerprints can be seen in the GM Allison V1710, the Lockheed P-38 Lightning, and the design ethos of American sports cars in the 1950s and 1960s. More than 8 decades later, the Packard Marine V12 remains a machine beyond replication, quiet in its perfection, timeless in its precision. Every time one of these engines fires to life, the crowd falls silent. Because they aren't just hearing an engine, they're hearing history itself. The sound of steel, of human hands, and of a time when America built not to sell, but to win. If you've ever felt that thrill, when steel, fire, and skill come together, help keep that memory alive. Share the story of Packard, so future generations will know that engines were once built not for money, but for honor and mastery. And if you love forgotten legends like this, hit subscribe, because there are still countless machines waiting to be rediscovered. Engines that once shaped history, then slipped beneath the waves of time.